So today we're learning about the standard form of an equation. The standard form of an equation, and this is equations that have typically both an x and a y value in them. The standard form is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are constant. And we know that constants are just numbers. X and Y are just X and Y. They're variables. We don't know what they stand for, but we know they're different because X and Y stand for different numbers. We just don't know what numbers they stand for. So here are a couple of examples. Negative 2x plus 4y equaling negative 6. So in this example, our A is going to be negative 2, our B is going to be 4, and our C is going to be negative 6. And so this is in the form of ax plus by equals c. The way I think about it is I have all of my terms that have variables on the left-hand side of the equation. And then I have all my terms, or the one term that is just a number, on the other side of the equation, the right-hand side. So basically I'm pulling my x and my y over to the left and my constant that is by itself over to the right. What we're doing today is we're going to be taking different equations that are in different forms in this and put it into this form. So if we look at the next equation, let's see if we can determine what A, B, and C are. So take just a minute and see if you can figure that out. So you should have A equals negative 5, B equals 3, and C equals 12. And this is in standard form. X and Y are over on the left-hand side, and the constant is on the right-hand side. On the next page, take a minute and identify the A, B, and C in each of the following equations. If a variable is missing, it means the coefficient of that variable is 0. So keep that in mind as you try these. In the first equation, A is negative 2, B is negative 3. Because if you change subtraction to addition, you see that the coefficient of y is negative and C is negative 9. In the next equation, you need to understand that if you do not have a variable, it means the coefficient is 0. Actually, 0x plus 4y equals 9. Therefore, A equals 0. B equals 4, and C equals 9. Continue trying the next two. Good. In the next equation, this is the same thing as having a 0 as the coefficient for y. So negative 7x plus 0y equals 11. So A is negative 7, B is 0, and C is 11. In the last problem, A is negative 5, B is negative 8, and C is 0. So we can see examples here where our coefficient or constant could be 0, whether it's the coefficient of x, the coefficient of y, or the constant itself. All of those could be 0 in different examples. The next thing we're going to learn is how to take an equation that is not in standard form and put it in standard form. We're going to use the opposite and reciprocal properties to do this. So what needs to be on the left-hand side that is not on the left-hand side? The first thing we need to recognize is that y has a coefficient of 1. We need for the 2x, or the term with the x in it, to be over on the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side. Well, the way we get it over there is we add the opposite. And the reason we add the opposite, or subtract, you can do subtraction as well. The reason that we add the opposite is because it's being added to the 3. And when you want to get rid of something that's being added to something, you add the opposite. because 2x plus negative 2x will equal 0. And that'll get rid of it over on the right-hand side. And if I do something to one side, I have to do it to the other side to keep the equation balanced. And that's how we bring the 2x over to the left-hand side. I end up with 2x plus 1y equals 3. So this is now in standard form, where a is negative 2, b is 1, and c is 3. So I'm actually lining up over on the left-hand side. And that way, I'm adding like terms together. Now try this equation and put it in standard form, and then check back. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add positive 5y to both sides, since we have a negative 5y being added to the negative 4, and we want to get rid of it over on the right-hand side. If we add it to the right, we have to add it to the left. We're going to line it up with the understood 0y on the left-hand side. You don't have to write that in, but just understand you're not adding 5y to negative 6x because they're different terms. Anyway, we end up with 5y plus negative 6x equals negative 4, and I just use my additive, my property where 5y plus negative 6x is the same thing as negative 6x plus 5y, which is the commutative property of addition, to write that in standard form. Let's look at the next equation. Try this one. Again, we're trying to get all the x's and y's on the left-hand side and get all the constants on the right-hand side. So in this case, we had to add a constant to both sides as well as 2x to both sides. And we end up with 2x plus negative 5y equals 10. Try the next equation. So once you put this in standard form, you realize that the term with the x is missing, which means there's an understood 0 as its coefficient. That's why it's not there. So in standard form, this equation is 0x plus negative 3y equals 9. Now let's try this last one and then check back when you're done. So you will notice that you do not have a constant that's all by itself. So the c is missing in our standard form, which means that it is an understood 0. So we end up with the equation 2x plus negative 12y equals 0 when we put this in standard form.